proposal from Goldfields started in a very hostile manner. I mean, just to go and stick it in the newspaper is not the normal way that you do these transactions.
Welcome back to another episode on the Gold Room podcast. Today, you are lucky enough that I've got Duncan Gibbs in the studio to chat to me about where mining is currently, a little bit about Gold Road Resources, and what the future holds for the industry. Duncan, thanks very much for joining me, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Thanks for the invite.
Not a problem. Look, take us back to your early years, mate.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have kind of done some other interviews along this kind of line, so I'll try and keep it a bit kind of brief. I was born in the UK, so quite different upbringing, I guess, to a lot of people. My dad was in the Royal Navy, and so as a young kid, I mean, I moved all over the world. I mean, as an infant, we flew in a DC-3, 13 hops to Hong Kong, was there for a few months. Then Dad got a posting down to Singapore, 4.5 years in Singapore. I mean, Singapore and Hong Kong, nothing like what you see today. You know, they were kind of the old kind of China and what have you, not big modern cities and all the rest of it. My sister was born in Singapore, and then, I mean, a lot of that I was too young to remember. I've kind of fleeting kind of odd little memories of Singapore and what have you. We actually drove back from Singapore to England, and again, I don't remember much of that.
How old were you?
So I was about 5 then, I suppose.
Is this that drove across the world in the Land Cruiser?
No. This is in the Volvo, right? So I've done it twice. So got back to England and then posting to Malta. Actually started school in Malta, and then the Brits got kicked out of Malta, moved back to England, and then really started sort of primary school and stuff back in the UK. Went through a couple of different schools there. And then my parents decided to get divorced, and I guess the fallout of all of that was I think my dad decided that moving to the other side of the world was the best thing he could do. So Dad got remarried, and we emigrated to Australia. And I guess as we just alluded to, I mean, I've been across the world twice. So the second time was in a Series 3 Land Rover. And
have you got any photos of that?
Yeah. I've actually bought in. I've given Reg a pile of stuff.
Awesome.
There's a CD of all sorts of things. So
beautiful.
We'll
chuck some of
you'll
those
find some
mate.
interesting things in there.
Yeah, awesome.
So I mean, we kind of did all the trek through Europe, but I mean, the more interesting part of it, in many ways, is the bits of the world you can't go to anymore, which is Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan. We came down through. Well, went into India, Nepal.
Beautiful.
India across to the Malay Peninsula, down to Singapore, and then from a ship across from Singapore to Fremantle.
How long was that trek?
It was done over about six months, right? So, and I mean, I had my 10th birthday on the way, so and we arrived in Fremantle in December 1976.
Wow. You did make it you didn't stay in Fremantle though, is that right? Is that the story? You went over east?
Yeah, look, I mean, Dan had a job already organised before we came across over in Bairnsdale in Victoria. And I mean, we had some cousins in Victoria on my stepmother's side.
Okay.
So we actually came across the Nullarbor with them. And then we lived in Bairnsdale for a couple of years. And then, we moved from there up to Mackay. So I kind of started primary school in Bairnsdale. And then, in fact, I moved up to Mackay, and really all my high school was through Mackay. And the process of all of that, I kind of skipped a year of education because the primary system in Victoria changed years different from Queensland. So I went from grade 7 high school in Queensland, in Victoria, to grade 8 high school in Queensland.
That wouldn't have been much of a problem for you, Duncan, I can't imagine.
Well, probably, I guess all of that kind of stuff probably didn't help me a lot with my education because, with what I've kind of outlined, there's 6 months I didn't go to school called travelling across the world. And
Probably one of the best educations you can get, though.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I've got, world experiences and seen different cultures. I think it shapes you as a person to have that kind of experience and see how people all over the world actually live, and they live differently and all the rest of it. But at the same time, I mean, it doesn't matter where you go in the world, human values are basically the same at the fundamental levels.
Yeah. So, high school?
Yeah, so I went to the local state high school in Mackay.
Yeah.
Milton Street, it was known by all the locals. So, yeah, it was just the local state school. Quite a big school, about 1,200 kids, I suppose. First year, the first year of high school, about 300. Demographics of Mackay, most people were for sort of farming and trades kind of backgrounds. So,
And mining back then?
not a lot. I mean, coal mining was kind of kicking off, right? And
What year was that?
so, I mean, I went through school, what was it, kind of 80, I graduated school in 83. So sort of, basically the early 80s.
Okay. And coal wasn't kicking off then?
Yeah, there was a bit, but nothing like the scale of it now. And so Mackay really was a sugarcane farming town, a little bit of tourism. And I mean, the centre of tourism, of course, was up around Airlie Beach. But Mackay at the sort of southern end of the wet Sundays. So, I mean, out of my cohort of school, I mean, more than half the kids, I think we only had about 100 of us who went through grade 11 and 12, and everybody else went off, very traditional those days, the blokes went off and did trades, and as a girl, you went and became a secretary or, worked as a checkout chick.
Yeah. Times have certainly changed.
Well, absolutely, and the guys did, trades. Yeah. So there's about 100 of us who went into grade 11 and 12, and I think there was only about 6 of us who actually went on and did kind of uni degrees.
Did you know at high school what you wanted to do? What sort of a uni?
Oh well, I kind of bounced around a lot of things. I actually thought about going to things like ag science and stuff like that. I went off to university to do marine biology, right? And the great dream here was, getting paid to go, diving on the Great Barrier Reef, and wonderful idea. But I guess I got to uni and realised that, that was a bit of a pipe dream. It really wasn't going to come together. I guess, fortunately, doing marine biology, you kind of do in fact, any science degree, you really do a broad science curriculum in the first year. So, I did basically botany, zoology, chemistry, and geology. And geology was kind of my fill-in subject. I either had to do that or maths or physics or, something out of one of the other faculties. So, I'd never really thought about doing geology, and I kind of actually started really enjoying it. And realised that, studying marine biology was pretty much a dead end. Out of the 100-odd students studying marine biology, there may be one job at the back end of it. So the attrition rate out of marine biology, by the time it went into second year, it was down to 30, 40 students, right? So, I mean, I wasn't the only one who kind of pivoted into other things. And then I followed through and basically did my, geology degree at James Cook. So, James Cook was the best place in Australia to do marine biology, but at the time, probably James Cook, Codes, and UWA, of course, were the primary institutions to study geology at, and unfortunately, James Cook's kind of fallen by the way in more recent years. But certainly, it was a good, grounding as a geologist to have that degree and that location.
Where was your first bloody job after you completed your geology degree?
Yeah, so I started down in Orange in New South Wales, and I graduated at the end of 87, so I started work in 1988, and it was really into a mining boom, and it's quite different to when I finished school. I mean, I finished school and the youth unemployment rate was something like 30%, right? And just general unemployment was like 10, 15, something like that. I had half a dozen different job offers, and pretty much the whole cohort of us who studied honours at James Cook all had multiple job offers. So a few of us all kind of went in kind of two clusters basically. So I started working Orange actually with the Shell company, so the oil business. And back then all the big oil majors were active in metals exploration, and they wrote about oil running out. And as times have gone, they've all exited the metals kind of business a long time ago. So first job working on a thing called Gum Flat, which was supposed to be an advanced stage resource drill out, and it had about 3 fences of drill holes across it, which were quite wide space. But if you did the sort of rough number, it wouldn't be JORC compliant, but you could see there might be 1 million ounces there. It's actually located down in the valley off the side of the cargo complex, which is where Waratah have got their new discovery.
Oh, wow.
So potentially, I mean, what we were really drilling was the sort of alluvial and deep lead material that was shedding off the cargo complex that's related to those. Unfortunately, we didn't have the bit of the cargo complex. That was owned by somebody else because that would have been the obvious thing to go and look at. So I worked on that, and at the same time, I mean, Shell made the Mount Todd discovery up in the Northern Territory, and most of the people I was working with in Orange ended up moving up to Mount Todd, and I ended up being basically the last geologist standing in Orange office, which meant that I was actually running all of the gold and base metals project that we had across all of New South Wales. So, Broken Hill Parks down around Cooma to the south, Canberra, and then a number of gold properties kind of in the immediate vicinity of Orange. So, I spent a couple of years in Orange. And then, like everybody else, I got kind of called up to go to Mount Todd.
I remember in a previous conversation you were telling me about one of the first computers used with Shell, and they asked you to do some specialty coding, and you had absolutely no idea how to do that.
Yeah, look, my honours year were the first year to type our own thesis. And when I started work, there were no computers in the office. So the first computer arrived for the secretary. So we used to write, reports and stuff on, geologists end up writing lots of reports for the government.
Were you writing on a typewriter? Or?
Well, no, my approach was to get last year's report and, cut up the last year's report, stick it on pieces of paper with Yoo-hoo glue and write the bit that filled in the middle and hand it back to the secretary.
Really? So someone else would type up all your documents?
So your secretary would do it. So, it's like when you left school, all the girls became secretaries because you need lots of them. And drafting, drawing maps was also all hand drawn. So when we moved to Mount Todd, we were one of the first companies to start computerising all of that. So I ended up basically putting together relational databases to, capture all that data. And, I'd been given a product to use, but it didn't work. So I ended up basically reading the DBase manual and working out how to do it.
Amazing.
So I worked on Mount Todd, and I had a traditional geos kind of role, working on the whole resource drill out of the Batman deposit, and because I was managing all the databases, it put me in the centre of liaising with a lot of the other mining industry professionals. So we were in pre-feasibility study, right? And Shell really looked at that project as about a 5 million tonne kind of development. So it was a substantial operation, kind of 10 million ounces is a big deposit. We computerised all of that. So, I was liaising a lot with the metallurgists and mining engineers. And, it was quite a foundation, I think, in my career because it started to give me the opportunity to liaise and communicate with people outside of just my own profession as a geologist. And it really came from the point of I was the connecting point with the access to all the data.
Awesome.
If we keep going on in my kind of career, from there I moved down to Melbourne actually into a technical IT job. So that was very much picking up off the stuff we were doing up at Mount Todd.
Is that where you met Leela?
No, actually, when Leela and I met in the Territory. So she was a teacher in Katherine, and I guess the common element was my boss and his wife had kids in Leela's class.
Oh, really?
There's a funny story there.
Yeah, go ahead. Hit me with that.
So this is my boss was Keith Kenny, right? So his wife organised for, two young geologists to meet two, single teachers, and single girls were short supply in that part of the world at that time. So we got sent off to meet these two young ladies to go and do a flight over Kakadu. Anyway, somehow she got her wires crossed, so we ended up in a plane flight with a bunch of meat packers.
What?
So that was a total failure. But I ended up bumping into Leela at some community event. I think it was like a food fair or something like that. And anyway, we actually became really good friends. So we were friends for about 18 months or so before we kind of got together as a couple. Yeah, the origins of this is my boss doing a bit of matchmaking.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good. That's really good. And so 4 kids with Leela too.
Yeah, we got 4 kids. So yeah, they're all adults these days. So my eldest, in fact, they're all in the building trade. My eldest is a builder, did his carpentry and did his builder's reg. So he's 28, kind of running his own building company. Then my daughter is an architect, so she did very well through that. So she's working in that kind of field. And then, my 2 other boys did trades as well. So Tom's also a
One's a Sparky, right?
yeah. So Henry's a Sparky.
Yeah.
And Tom's another carpenter, and he's partway through his builder's reg as well. So
Awesome.
So
Any plans to reduce the costs by having the people in the family?
Well, I mean, after finishing with Gold Road, I've actually been doing a fair bit of just trying to build the company, build the family's property empire.
Yep.
We're in the midst across the family of basically building 3 houses are in the various stages of development
awesome.
and DAs and all that kind of stuff.
Beautiful.
And it's very much leveraging the next generation. So yeah.
But let's get into, we don't need to spend too much time on it because I know you've spoken about it, and anyone who knows you or knows Gold Road knows what happened. But can we just do a little beginning, mid and end of Gold Road, how you got started with Gold Road, and so a couple of highlights, and then the exit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess there's a piece in the middle here, which obviously I managed Tropicana and then, Sunrise Dam. And I mean, managing those 2, I mean, they're big scale mines, and obviously I took Tropicana from discovery, right through feasibility study, and then as initial general manager. So, I mean, I think that background really gave me the, technical and management operational kind of background to be able to, be a valid candidate for the CEO for Gold Road. I kind of moved internally within Anglo from Tropicana to Sunrise Dam. Sunrise Dam, of course, is a 3 million tonne a year underground, 4 million tonne plant. It's a big operation as well.
A good friend of mine, Jason Cable, works there as he's just jumped jobs, but he's maintenance manager or maintenance manager superintendent. I don't know what it is, but he's doing very well for himself. He was actually on the podcast last year.
Yeah. So I mean, both of them are big mines, right? But I'd actually sort of stuck my hand up to move from Tropicana to Sunrise, probably because I needed to do something different, and partly, I want to get some experience in running an underground mine. I kind of came to the realisation that actually, as a GM, and your role's really around leadership and making sure everything's kind of properly planned and resourced. Yeah. The difference between an open pit and underground is actually not that vastly different if you're operating the right strategic level. Some people might not agree with me, but that's the kind of way I said it. I saw it as just it ended up being kind of doing another job at the same level. So I started looking around externally for kind of CEO level roles, and the opportunity of Gold Road came together. Of course, I joined Gold Road as it was part way through the construction. So the whole discovery of Gruyere and the resource drill out and all that kind of stuff had been done, and I landed as we were kind of starting to get into cost and overruns and time delays on the build, and had to get quite actively involved with that. The JV, of course, with Goldfields was already running, and within the business, a lot of focus on giving exploration sort of some rejuvenation, and what did we focus on? Because the team that have been put together, realistically, have been put together to do a kind of resource drill out, and to go and find another one really required some different skill sets. And I guess the third strength of the bow we really ended up was focusing a lot on M&A as the other kind of growth opportunity for Gold Road. So I mean, a lot of my time within Gold Road, despite my exploration background, I kind of needed to leave that to other people, and I focused very much on the operational side of Gruyere and on looking at business development kind of opportunities. So I mean, Gold Road, of course, had a good run, and when I started, we had a market cap of about 600 million, and if you look at the see-through value at the end, it closed at about 3.8 billion. So shareholders, particularly some of the shareholders who got in the very early days of Gold Road, of course, did very well.
Yeah, look, I looked at your share packet. You did all right.
Look, I mean, I'm going to put it. I mean, getting taken over at the end of the day as an executive is a bit like winning the lotto, right? I mean,
was it a little bit disheartening as well?
Oh, absolutely, and I mean, at the end of the day, the way I look at it is the deal that Gold Road did was absolutely the right deal for shareholders, and that's ultimately what your key accountability is, right? As an executive and as a board of a company, fairly clearly the proposal from Goldfields started in a very hostile manner. I mean, just to go and stick it in the newspaper is not the normal way that you do these transactions. I mean, most transactions are actually the most successful transactions are done on friendly terms.
Yeah,
agreed.
Mind you see that Elliott's and Northern Star, the largest shareholder of in Northern Star.
Yeah, but Elliott are a known activist shareholder group who bought into Northern Star, and that's very much Elliott's playbook.
Throw it into the news and create some diversity.
Well, they're deliberately trying to shake it
Division?
up. And I mean, and look, I don't have any great insights into the inner dealings of Northern Star, of course, but
in the paper, Northern Star have just come out and said, "Nah, we're not going to be doing a massive change of our corporate structure. We're not going to be doing any of that."
Yeah, but Elliott, it's just typically out of their playbook. Have come in and stir it up, and I mean they're just ultimately trying to make value for themselves. So if they can precipitate a takeover or a major organisational turnaround or whatever their core ambition is, and they'll be trying to rally the other shareholders to get activity. That's just their playbook.
Yeah.
And they're well known for doing exactly what they're trying to do at Northern Star. So, I mean, I know that from just, general background without knowing the specifics of actually what's happening on the inside of Northern Star, of course.
Yeah. Mate, what do you think about the Vault Minerals and Regis merger?
Yeah, it's an interesting play. To me, it's primarily about scale. I don't really see there's a lot of synergies or whatever between those two things. Well played to Luke is probably the best way I can put it. He'd announced his retirement. Well, going out with a takeover is probably a far better outcome.
Yeah, I remember an early conversation with you, and might have been a couple of weeks before the announcement and of the Vault Regis, and I remember you saying, I don't need to work, but if it's the right position, if the right role came up, and then I said, oh mate, what about bloody Luke Tonkin's heading on out to retirement? What about looking at Vault? And 2 weeks later, boom, they don't need Luke Tonkin at the helm anymore.
Yeah, no, look, you could guarantee that discussion's been going for several months to get to that point.
Absolutely.
So no surprise, there's probably not too many people got a phone call about that job.
What about, let's get into the state of the mining industry. Like, certainly gold, it's absolutely amazing. We've got some lithium processing plants that are, starting. I think last year we saw one couple close, and then recently in the news we've got another one, PLS, I think up north, are starting another, opening up a processing plant. What do you think for the mining industry as a whole?
Yeah, look, if you just step back, other than probably lithium, I'm going to say a lot of our industry is, I'm going to call it a brownfields industry.
Yeah.
If you look at the new discovery of gold and base metals, there haven't been many. I mean, the big ones in gold, of course, are, Tropicana, Gruyere, and Hemi, of course, right? And one way or the other, I've had a finger in the pie of kind of all of those. With our shareholding interests in De Grey. But there hasn't been much else. And the geology of WA is not that good for most base metal deposits, and there certainly hasn't been any big discoveries in that space. Lithium is quite different, of course. It's a lot more immature, and that's because lithium is really a new thing driven by the battery space. A lot of those discoveries have actually been known mineral occurrences, and there's been known presence of lithium or other metals that occur with lithium that's resulted in a wave of things being discovered quite quickly. But a lot of those have just been geos kind of going through the filing system and going, oh, that one looks interesting, we'll go and drill there. So that's an immature exploration space, whereas a lot of our exploration across WA has been, well, Australia, generally has been pretty well picked over. So we're not finding new mines, and the success rate has kind of dwindled. What we have been very good at is drilling under old pits and turning mines deeper and expanding them. So there's a huge value in kind of incumbency, is the way I kind of look at it.
In the mining junior exploration space.
Well, I mean, even the more successful juniors, if you kind of take out Gold Road and De Grey, who've made big, new virgin discoveries, most of the juniors are actually in the territory of, an old piece of ground, old mine. Something like Bellevue would be a good example.
Or even rocks resources.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, so there's a few of those, right? Where, and rocks have obviously, they've on a refractory system. So I mean, by and large, people have had an allergic reaction to refractory deposits. So you can almost guarantee anything that's refractory is under drilled. And Bellevue, to me is a classic of that kind of story. Horizon's probably another one that's kind of in an earlier phase of basically taking these old known mining centres and drilling them off at depth and pretty much as the opportunities now as undergrounds, which generally are smaller scale in terms of tonnes throughput than they were historically. I mean, they can be quite profitable, of course, and we're working in a much higher gold price in real terms. So when I started, in the industry, you kind of wanted 3 grams in an open pit and 7 grams underground. That was a pretty good rule of thumb, right? And
yep.
We're now mining.
That was high grade.
Yeah, well, but we're now mining, stuff in the kind of 2-ish grams underground.
Super high grade.
And, your marginal cut-off grade in an open pit's kind of 0.2, 0.3, right? The early stuff I did in operations, all that went to a low-grade stockpile. We'll probably never do anything with that. It was almost like... Well,
that's all pushed by the gold price, obviously.
Yeah, and it's the gold price has gone up in real dollar terms, right? Because our cost base has gone up as well, of course, but...
not comparatively to the gold price.
In many ways, what's happening in the gold sector is we're not finding new mines, but the increase in gold price is making lower grade, higher, it's not just grade, it's strip ratio, it's recovery, it's all those factors that means you can mine lower quality ore than you would have been able to in the past. And this journey isn't new, right? If you go back to Paddy Hannon and his mates, what were they mining were narrow, high grade, 1 ounce loads underground, the width of a man's shoulder with no dilution.
Yeah.
And, the industry's gone through a phase of kind of bulk mining and, low energy costs, working at large scale and driven down the cost structure. And now we're probably replacing finding new mines with gold price is the way to actually make stuff that we already know about fundamentally economic.
So scratching around with findings that we already know about.
Yeah, and some of it's. We've seen a bit of a wave of reprocessing, old dumps and tails dams and stuff like that. A lot of that was, of course, done in the 80s, but and some of that driven by technology with CIL processing driving down the cost structure. But my view in recent times, particularly in Australia, the discovery track record, because exploration's getting more mature. The easy stuff that's just poking out the ground is probably been found. And the amount of green tape, red tape and everything else that really, inhibits the ability to get out in the ground and look at things at the right scale is getting harder. And the opportunities for exploration are all around the existing known mining centres. It's not to say that new things won't be discovered, but, if you kind of look in the 1980s, when I was, if you look at the 90s when I was working on Sunrise Dam, we had, Sunrise Dam, Jundee and Plutonic were all kind of in discovered within, a few months of each other. We're all in the development pipeline at the same time.
Mark Creasy discovered those deposits, didn't he?
Well, Creasy was Jundee, I can't remember. He was half of Jundee, Nimmery, right? And then obviously Bronzewing, was very much Mark Creasy. Plutonic, can't remember, was one of the juniors that ended up going to Barrack, of course. Sunrise Dam was basically Delta on one side of the fence and then Shell Acacia on the other side of the fence. And I mean, I was on the Shell Acacia side of things. And I mean, our exploration strategy was no more sophisticated than they're really busy over there. We better go and drill on our side of the fence, right?
If it's working for them, it's going to work for us.
And I mean, look, this was a key part of my kind of career history, which kind of skipped over. But I mean, I arrived in the Kalgoorlie office to start looking after some exploration down around Lake Cowan, and the company was going through a big kind of turmoil at the time. So I ended up basically managing the whole drill out of Sunrise Dam, in my sort of late 20s. I took Sunrise Dam through basically heading up all the geology side of the feasibility study, and then on as the geology manager through the startup of that. I mean, Sunrise is an amazing ore body. I mean, as an open pit, it was astounding. I mean, the open pit reserve grade was about 4.5 grams.
Do you know the mine life for Sunrise?
Look, what it is today, I mean, I'm going to say, irrespective of what the reserve's going is, it's going to be there in another 10 to 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And like a lot of underground operations, the reserve base often only goes out 2 or 3 years, but you keep drilling and you keep extending it, and that's the nature of that system. Sunrise is an incredibly complex deposit, and even in the last few years, they've found new structures within the system that are plus 1 million ounces. And 1 million ounces is a mine by itself.
Yep.
In many places, and it's an incredibly complex geology there, and they keep finding things that kind of not readily predicted, if you kind of what I mean, and it requires a hell of a density of drilling often to put it together as well.
But I want to chat to you about mergers, right? As you said, you've been involved with multiple, some huge ones and some smaller ones. What's involved right from the get-go?
Look, my view is that, the industry, people are talking to each other all the time about opportunities, and I think, as a by and large, the better transactions are done on a friendly basis, and there's some core value proposition that's brought together by bringing the two companies together. In other words, the shareholders of both companies benefit through the transaction. So to me, they're the better deals. The aggressive deals where somebody just goes and basically shoots the lights out to, acquire somebody else, more often than not, they're actually related. All that's doing is transferring the wealth of the acquirer's shareholders across to the acquiree's shareholders. And there's, not just in the gold space, but there's been a lot of value destruction through M&A as well, right? Something like the Northern Star Saracen tie-up to me was just one that made strategic sense. Shipping ore past each other's door and all that kind of stuff, being able to leverage mill infrastructure. And there was a big tax benefit out of that transaction that kind of made it make a lot of sense as well. So you see some of these deals and, when that was announced, I'm pretty sure the share price of both sides went up. Which is often, not the normal market response, of course.
We didn't see that with Vault. We didn't see that with the Vault Regis deal. We saw the Vault shares go down.
Yeah, well, normally.
We saw the Vault shares go up, and we saw the Regis shares go down.
Yeah, which is the normal. The acquirer share price takes a dip, and the acquiree share price goes up. If it's a friendly merger, then the premium being paid by the acquirer is, either zero or let's call it less than 10%. But a true merger, of course, is a full blend of, the organisation and management teams and boards, and normally under that kind of circumstance, and with the takeover ratio between kind of 40-60% at the outer bounds as to the percentage of the combined party held by the original groups of shareholders. So that's the kind of the true merger of equals kind of space sits in that kind of area. And look, those transactions, if they're done the right way, are probably the better places for companies to create value for shareholders.
What about
particularly if there are operational synergies or things? Because I mean, the Regis Vault thing to me looks more about scale and market relevance than it does really around, it consolidates a region, or you've actually got some operational synergies, or perhaps some different, business capabilities that you bring together. It's not obvious to me what that kind of piece is in the Regis Vault tie-up.
What about the Alex Rivera Brightstar Minerals M&As? Because he did like 5 in 18 months.
Yeah, and sometimes the way to just start building a business is rapid fire,
be aggressive.
Yeah, and bolting things on. I mean, if you look at the Genesis team and really it's the same management team in Saracen before that. I mean, Regis has Ramelius has very much the same playbook as well, right? I mean, there's a lot of it's just bolt-on acquisitions to your existing milling infrastructure, and I mean that makes a lot of sense. I mean, otherwise you've just got stranded, 500,000 ounce exploration things that are never going to get developed by themselves.
Great point. And Wayne Bramall is from Westgold, and he's getting rid of those smaller ones to Valiant.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wayne's kind of doing the reverse spin
and
out.
Alicanto, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of doing the reverse. I mean, and to me, the playbook there was created by the spin out of the Western Mining nickel assets, and that ultimately formed a whole bunch of successful junior nickel players who each had their own little mine. But the history there, of course, I mean, Western Mining had all of those assets. They had all of the smelting capacity. They were struggling with the exploration and probably risk profile of those assets, including the safety risk profile of those assets. And to me, it actually ended up with a strategy that played very well for them because they spun out those things. It created a whole bunch of successful juniors that ultimately kept the Kalgoorlie nickel smelter full and became a key part of sustaining that nickel business. I mean, nickel's had its challenges in more recent times, but it's a pretty smart strategy. So, I mean, to some extent, I think Wayne's kind of doing the same thing, is spin out some of the, exploration stuff that they're not going to get to in their own time. I mean, they need to be focused on kind of drilling off underneath the mine. But if some of those companies are successful in putting some ounces together, well, the obvious mill is Westgold. So, somewhere or other, they're going to end up processing those ounces, whether they reacquire those juniors or do toll treating agreeing deals or purchase deals. I mean, there's lots of creative ways you can kind of do that bit next.
Yeah.
But, keep your mill full is how you drive your costs down, right?
Yep.
So everybody can benefit from that kind of, playbook.
Dunk, you've travelled the world. You've seen mining. You've spoken to miners all over the world. Do you think Western Australia is the best mining jurisdiction in the world?
Look, I think it's definitely up there, but everywhere in the world is getting harder. So the first starting point is really that doesn't matter where you go, it's more and more challenging. It's red tape, green tape, exploration maturity. We've kind of talked to a lot of those things. So it's all just like relative, but by and large, it's just getting worse.
You mean internationally it's getting worse, or here?
No, it's a global problem, right? I mean, access to mineral resources, and the world is getting more mature for exploration. The easy things globally have been kind of found. You can go to, let's call it, more exotic destinations where the risks are you're either going to get shot or lack of security of mineral titles, or just it's
West African resources.
Suddenly you lose X% of your mineral deposit because the government decides they want more of it.
Seen that recently.
So you see that's the Africana kind of playbook. Or we have led another coup in whichever West African nation you want to talk about.
Yep.
So from a investor point of view, you're trading off kind of exploration, discovery, risk, ore body quality, and jurisdiction. So you can go to Africa and find a high grade, better, higher value deposit, but you're taking on
a lot
of other investment kind of risks. And their coups, their changes in tax regime, they're all these kind of things. I spent a fair bit of my life kind of also just looking at exploration opportunities and what have you up through, Asia. And there's a lot of it, there's some amazing prospectivity and stuff. But
like Indonesia, what part of Asia were you looking at?
Look, my brief was basically everything in the time zone. So, I was actually running exploration offices up in China, Mongolia. I've been involved in, joint ventures and strategic alliances in Laos, Philippines. Personally, I've been on the ground, looked at properties in India, Indonesia, PNG, right? I know where there's a 3-4 million ounce deposit in India. It's just never going to get mined.
But why not? There's some great Indian mining companies, BGR.
But at the time you unpack your way through the level of bureaucracy, corruption, and all these kind of things, you can just go, it ain't going to happen, right?
Yeah, okay.
Or it's not going to happen by a Western listed company that we have to comply with anti-corruption and money laundering kind of rules, right? Yep. And there's parts of the world it's the rule of man, not the rule of law, is how they operate. The big men control the countries, right?
What do you think of the Saudi Arabia play, mining in Saudi Arabia? Is the talk of the town? Is it going to be the next Africa? Are we going to lose all of our top talent?
Look, I don't know that. I'm not close enough to it. But Saudi, has been trying to, and they've been quite active in the mineral exploration kind of space. Occasionally I've kind of had random phone calls from would I like to get a job in Saudi, through my career. And I think it's certainly got some good, mineral potential. But the detail of it, I'm obviously not up to speed with really that.
Yeah, Gina Reinhardt's got involved with it. Has done a little bloody JV with Ma'aden, Saudi Arabians. I think it's their largest mining operation.
Yeah. Well, they're basically the state, owned mining arm of the Saudis, right? So. There's also certainly some potential there, but I'm not
all over it.
Yeah, I'm not all over it.
Can't be all over everything, mate.
Well, you kind of you have to focus your time and effort. Would I go and invest in it? No.
Yeah. No, well, that's fair enough.
It doesn't pass the high level, kind of risk profile test, irrespective of what the mining potential might be.
Okay. When looking at building a team, right, looking at building a high-level executive leadership team, what are you as a CEO looking at?
Yeah, maybe I'll just backtrack a bit from that. I became effectively general manager level in my early 30s. I was basically managing all of AngloGold's exploration activities. And then, of course, I've been moved on from there, made the Tropicana discovery, and then managed both Tropicana and Sunrise Dam. Before I became a CEO. So, really I've been doing leadership jobs for 20 years. And, I started that in, was the head of a department at 28. There's certainly things in life I'd have done differently when I was a 28-year-old to what I do now. But look, at the general manager and CEO level, fundamentally, a lot of what you've got to do is create a cohesive organisation where people like working together and for a common purpose. So, your starting point of a CEO, of course, is to make sure there's a common purpose. Sometimes that's blindingly obvious. It's like we're drilling the shit out of this deposit to turn it into mine, and everybody knows what their common purpose is. Sometimes it's less obvious to people, and you have to kind of create it, I think Gold Road went through a bit of this. We kind of discovered and obviously development of Gruyere, and I mean I came in, of course, as the mine was going through the building phase, but internally the organisation kind of went through, well, what do we do next? Because the singular goal had been build the mine, and then bring in a JV partner. Well, so then what's the core purpose of the people who are actually working for the non-managing? And you have to kind of redefine that. So that's that's an important part of any kind of leadership job. But I also look at then, well, how do you actually get that to work, get that to kind of come together and really get people working together cohesively? And I mean, I find human behaviour is quite kind of fascinating, right? We resort to our kind of tribal origins, in my opinion, right? So as soon as you kind of create a boss and you put 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, however many working for that, that's a tribe.
Yep.
And that tribe might be one department in a mine site. And if you're not careful, well, the purpose of one tribe is to fight the other tribe, isn't it? It's get more stuff. And a lot of your job of your CEO is to actually define the unifying purpose at the level of of any manager. It doesn't matter whether you're a department head or the CEO. You've actually got to create the defining purpose for the whole organisation and get people focused on that. Because otherwise you kind of get what I see as caveman instincts coming out where, you just end up with one tribe throwing rocks and stuff at the other tribe over there and trying to get their resources, and there's a lot of businesses that actually are quite dysfunctional in terms of how inter-department and inter-office and all these kind of rivalries occur that actually serve no useful benefit for the individuals and of course ultimately for shareholders. And your job as a decent manager is to kind of smoke all this stuff out and get rid of it, right? So you've got to kind of do that by being clear about what the goals of everybody is. In my view, there's a lot of stuff that's really around kind of role clarity. It's just getting people to clearly understand what their job is and how their job relates to everybody else. Give them the resources so they can kind of get on with it. And if you can kind of create that environment, it becomes a lot nicer place for everybody to work in. And of course, it's far more successful and you achieve a lot more.
Yep.
And ultimately, the job of being kind of a general manager and above is very much that. In my opinion, it's a lot about is getting just the whole. I kind of put it together as my kind of catchphrase is organisational capability, but a lot of it's just getting all those kind of human pieces together, so it just works like a well-oiled machine, and people work for common goals and common purposes. And you cut out all this irrelevant stuff that you see happening in a lot of businesses.
Mm. Mate, what about, look, you're in the back seat at the moment, you're not currently employed and you're busy. I know you're very busy, building a Land Cruiser and spending some family time. What do you think about the state of the mining industry here in Australia?
Yeah.
From taking a back seat and being able to, you're not right in it, but you're still hearing all the stories. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, it's kind of in your blood, so you don't just kind of disappear and do nothing. I think we're very much becoming a bit of a brownfields kind of industry, right? I mean, if you really look at it, the track record of new discoveries is really dwindled.
Yeah,
I mean, the new ones in gold space are obviously things like Gruyere and obviously Hemi with the grey. There's obviously a wave of stuff in the lithium space, but then lithium's like a new commodity, so they've got a kind of new search space looking for stuff. In fact, most of the things they've found are not actually new; they've been known in the geological record for decades.
Yep.
But if you look at gold in particular, I mean, a lot of the developments and expansions and the success of companies is basically just drilling deeper, or at least in the same mine camp. So we're very much a maturing, kind of sector, right?
Yeah. What excites you about the future of mining here? Are you looking at getting getting back into the front seat?
Oh, look, if the right opportunity, I mean, I'm definitely interested in finding the right kind of opportunity. I mean,
What does that look like for you? Who's approaching you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't kind of talk to anything specific there, but
Has anyone approached you?
yeah, no, I've been involved in a number of kind of proceeds and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I'm in the fortunate position in life I kind of don't have to, Josh. But
Shit, man, I'd love to be in that position.
there's a bit of stuff that is in your blood, and if you enjoy doing it,
Yeah.
And I mean, I could probably go in and do some kind of director level jobs as well. But I mean, I actually like the more hands-on stuff of executive kind of work than being a Ned.
Yeah, for sure, mate. This is my last question for you. Do you have a really good piece of sound advice that you would be giving out there to other people in the industry?
Yeah, that's a bit one of a question on notice. I think in many ways, if you're going to be successful, I mean, as an employee or, even as a business or whatever, you've got to find something that's your passion, right? I mean, work to me starts with, you've actually got to enjoy it.
That's right.
Nobody's actually going to be good at anything that I mean, it might be you earn lots of money and what have you, but if you go to work every day and you hate it, you're not actually going to be good at it.
Yeah.
So you've got to, first bit is find something you enjoy, follow your passion. And then, you've got to find an organisation, of course, that, lets you be you. And, if you've got a kind of deeper emotional connection to, what you do and what your sense of purpose is, you're going to be far better as an employee than somebody, or as the business owner or the CEO or whatever you are, than purely if you're doing it because I've got to earn some money to pay the mortgage and send the kids to school or whatever, right?
Yeah. Mind you, Dunk, I can actually picture you really enjoying yourself scuba diving on the Great Barrier Reef, mate. So you missed your boat there, but I think you would have enjoyed that.
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of went, out of uni. I mean, I looked at going into, first started doing marine biology.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Out of JCU, and I mean, I kind of fell into geology rather than it was my kind of pick. Geology was my fill-in subject, right? But I kind of had this realisation that, there were kind of no jobs in marine biology, or if you did, you'd be falling in love with one fish for the rest of your life. And getting paid peanuts for it. And, I did geology as, you had to do kind of 4 different subject areas in first year. And I did geology as to, well, I don't want to do physics, so I'll do geology kind of thing. But, I mean, to me, geology is it's actually a pretty broad-based, it can take you in lots of different pathways. Obviously into the mining sector, right through into kind of pure research, fields and things like that as well. So, I kind of fell into it rather than it's where I, decided as a, back in grade 10, that's what I was going to do or whatever.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, Dunk, we've covered some bloody ground, mate, and thank you very much for joining me.
Okay, thanks,
I look forward to getting you back in the hot seat when you're sitting back in a CEO's position.
Right, okay, cheers, thanks, mate.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for tuning into another episode on the Gold Road Podcast. I hope you liked this episode. Drop us a comment down below. Thank you.